Here a few hours ago, Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic greeting the chief of his air defense system. Now, NATO has been trying, certainly in phase one of the campaign, to degrade, if not take out completely, Yugoslav's air defenses, which pose a threat to Allied aircraft. As far as the Yugoslavs are concerned, they say their air defenses, which they still claim shot down the F-117A stealth fighter a couple of days ago, are still very much in good shape. Now, another form of protest that we've seen the previous day happened again today in the center of Belgrade with a rock concert protesting NATO's action. Thousands of Serbs took to the streets as those devastating attacks against Kosovo continued. People here were shrugging off the threat of further airstrikes in the Yugoslav capital to attend the protest concert for the second day running. Organizers say the event will continue until the attacks stop. Many people wore symbols of what now is a popular theme here. That is that they have become targets of what they say is NATO aggression. Back to you, Ralph.
Brent, for the first time since the bombing raids began, and perhaps while the raids continue, you'll be getting a diplomatic initiative on Tuesday in Belgrade from Russian Prime Minister Yevgeny Primakov. What's the expectation in the Serb government there for that diplomatic visit?
Well, we've seen no real pre-reporting of any really substantial consequence in advance of this visit. Mr. Primakov is expected to come here with a delegation to try and break through the deadlock, to try and achieve success where so many other diplomatic missions have failed. Certainly there's no sign from the Yugoslav leadership here that they're about to capitulate under NATO threat of force. So Mr. Primakov, the Russian Prime Minister, has a very difficult job ahead of him here.
Brent, Russia says it hopes to persuade President Milosevic to change his mind and sign the Kosovo peace plan. We're joined now by our Moscow bureau chief, Jill Doherty, who's reporting live from the Russian capital. Jill?
Well, Ralph, that's really the quandary right now. When Mr. Primakov takes off tomorrow, Tuesday, to Belgrade, really, essentially, his aim is to find some type of a political solution. But the question is how to do that. And if you look at what the essential Russian position is, it has been, number one, stop the NATO air attacks, and then try to get Mr. Milosevic to agree to that original peace settlement or peace agreement. But NATO is saying essentially the reverse. Agree to that peace settlement, and then the bombing can stop. So Primakov apparently would have to try to move Mr. Milosevic far enough to get some type of a commitment that is serious enough, or at least appears serious enough to NATO, so that they could actually end those air attacks. And remember that Mr. Primakov actually has played the role of intermediary before, back before the Gulf War. He met in Baghdad with Saddam Hussein, tried to avert airstrikes that time, and it did not work. So we'll have to see what he's going to do this time. Ralph?
Jill, it was just about a week ago that Mr. Primakov turned his plane around in midair on his way to the United States to turn back to Russia. Any chances he might fly from Belgrade to the United States to try to deal with this diplomatic mission?
They're not saying exactly where he would go. There was one report that he might be going on to Bonn, but that is not confirmed. And what they're saying right now, the latest at least coming from the Russian government, is that a lot really will depend upon what goes on during these talks. They said that if something positive came out, then they would immediately notify NATO, but they're not saying exactly what will happen. Ralph?
Jill Doherty reporting live from Moscow. Russia's diplomatic initiative is being greeted with skepticism here in Washington. CNN White House correspondent John King standing by with that part of the story. John.
That's right, Ralph. The White House publicly wishing Mr. Primakov well on his visit to Belgrade, but a great deal of skepticism here at the White House. They say there is no evidence that Mr. Milosevic is prepared to do what it will take, in the White House view, to stop the NATO bombing. They say that would require an end to the offensive in Kosovo, for Mr. Milosevic to pull out most of his troops from Kosovo, and for the Yugoslav leader to sign on to a peace agreement that, if not exactly the same as the one already signed by the Kosovar Albanians, at least included all the